if you take the concept of Atlantis seriously, you're regarded by archaeologists and their friends in the media as a kind of lunatic.
If Atlantis was a real thing, if we perhaps discover it someday, which we may, of course, we could learn a lot from that.
We are still baffled by the intriguing enigma of the lost land of Atlantis, which has persisted through the years. The myth of this ancient society has fascinated people for millennia all throughout the world, with tales of advanced technology, enormous wealth, and hidden treasures adding to its mythical stature. Graham Hancock, a well-known author from Britain, thinks that Atlantis actually existed. He even disclosed the precise location of the city in his podcast. So, was Atlantis a myth, or was it real at one point, and if so, what caused it to collapse? Come along as we explore the enigma surrounding the location of the lost city of Atlantis and uncover the startling information that has been withheld. There is more to the mystery surrounding the Atlantean mythology than meets the eye. In a way, the era of Atlantis is where our current race and civilization originated. However, where did the legend of this mysterious submerged island come from? The Greek philosopher Plato is credited with one of the first and most well-known accounts of Atlantis, which dates to approximately 36 BC. In the dialogues Critias and Timaeus, Plato describes in great detail a bountiful place he called Atlantis. He describes it as a large island that sank in the Atlantic Ocean about 10,000 years ago and lay outside the Pillars of Hercules, which is usually taken to mean the Strait of Gibraltar. Solon, the Attic legislator and philosopher, is most likely the source of Plato's knowledge of Atlantis. Around 600 BC, Solon visited Egypt and heard about a vast society that had lived 9,000 years earlier. Plato was fascinated by the idea of Atlantis, and in order to learn more, he sought advice from Pythagorean students, as well as experts in ancient geology, mythology, and history. Plato undoubtedly learned a few things from initiates connected to covert fraternities entrusted with preserving antiquated records. In the past, these mystery schools kept knowledge exclusive to the initiated in order to guarantee its survival in dangerous situations. For the majority of his life, Plato did not write down specifics regarding Atlantis. In an effort to preserve the legacy of the vanished civilization, he only shared information about the submerged continent in his senior years. Plato built his story of Atlantis by drawing on historical archives, notably those kept in the Library of Alexandria, which noted psychic and healer Edgar Cayce says was founded by the Atlanteans around 10,300 BC. Without a doubt, Plato's Atlantis was a large island, maybe the size of Western Europe, but not the size of a whole continent. He said that it was rich in natural resources and particularly prolific in metals, such as the well-known and mysterious orichalcum. Situated on the southern tip of the island, the capital of Atlantis was connected to the ocean by a vast canal. With 3 concentric rings divided by moats, the city assumed a round shape, and the inner citadel measured about 5 kilometers in diameter. The metropolis was nearly twice the size of Imperial Rome, with a total walking area of 23 kilometers. According to Plato, the Atlanteans were affluent beyond the reach of any king or ruler that had come before them and probably wouldn't be matched again. Due to the size of their dominion, whatever the city and the island itself lacked was obtained from other countries. Sadly, Plato's famous Atlantean dialogue, Critias, is still unfinished. But according to another dialogue, the Laws, Atlantis was destroyed in a single day and night by a catastrophic occurrence that resulted in a protracted dark age, during which the arts and sciences were lost. But can we trust Plato's description of Atlantis? And do we know how the surface of the Earth, especially the region along Africa's northwest coast, looked more than 12,000 years ago, when Atlantis was supposedly in existence? Although Plato's account gives fascinating information about this metropolis, it is unable to determine the precise location of this ancient civilization. In order to learn more, we must investigate the evolution of the world's oceans by turning to the fields of geology and oceanography. According to popular belief, Atlantis was a volcanic continent that was mostly connected to Europe, Africa, and North America by transient land bridges. It was located in the mythologically rich region. Between 23 and 5.3 million years ago, Atlantis saw a tremendous increase in its area, producing an essentially continuous landmass that stretched from the southern tip of Africa to the North Appalachian continent. Later on, it was divided into two separate islands, Poseidonis, which was located in the north, and Da, which was located in the south. Up until the latest ice age, the northern island, Poseidonis, continued to exist as a sizable landmass until sinking as a result of tectonic movements and an overall rise in sea levels worldwide. Some of the last pieces of the Atlantic continent that are above water are thought to be the Azores and Madeira. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge would appear as a single mountain range, similar in length to the combined Andes and Rockies of America, and similar in height to the Himalayas, if the ocean's waters were drained and the ocean floor were exposed. The undersea chain is only topped by the Azores, Madeira, Cape Verde, and the Canary Islands of today. Was that where Atlantis really lay? Most old technology, including Plato's stories of Atlantis, vanished into oblivion throughout the Middle Ages. Not until the Renaissance, a time of renewed curiosity for antiquated knowledge, did the drowned island come back into focus. Many theories concerning the continent that vanished in the Atlantic Ocean have been proposed over the past 500 years. But do these ideas support Plato's account? Or do they obscure a different kind of knowledge? Are we really aware of who the Atlanteans are? How did they establish their civilization? Did aliens play a role in the creation of Atlantis, as some people theorize? Ismael Perez, the author of Our Cosmic Origin, offers a fascinating and somewhat esoteric theory regarding the origin of Atlantis. He proposes that humanoid creatures from the Pleiades in the fifth dimension founded Atlantis. These entities achieved significant technical advancement in accord with the spiritual by successfully integrating and maintaining a balance between the spiritual and material realms. The last great civilization, Lura or Mu, was progressively disconnected from the material world and the lower planes in favor of a spiritual concentration. Their goal was to raise the consciousness of the planet, but since the lower dimensions were not well integrated, Atlantis ended up being the means of bridging the gap and uniting the two polarities. Theosophical teachings state that humanity progresses through 7 major evolutionary cycles known as root races, which progressively give rise to the planet's collective consciousness. Every root race has unique physical and mental characteristics from its ancestor, as well as a goal. The first truly human and terrestrial race, Atlantis, signified the 4th root race. The Russian mystic and magician Helena Blavatsky proposes that the race of the red man is the 4th root race, which first appeared some 8 million years ago. The Atlantean civilization's beginnings are still a mystery. As per the esoteric tradition, at the beginning of the Atlantean period, higher spiritual entities assumed human form and became divine men, dual beings, supreme spirits residing in human bodies. The occultist and philosopher Rudolf Steiner continues, saying that their ultimate home is somewhere beyond Earth. The first stage of Atlantean civilization extended from its island home to other parts of the world, giving rise to the 2nd and 3rd Neo-Atlantean periods. There were major earth tremors and natural disasters during every global age or period, with the most recent being the submersion of Atlantis in 9600 BC. How did the Atlanteans appear? The 4th race is described in theosophical teachings as giants, albeit smaller than the Lorans. They inspired myths of Cyclops and Titans in ancient traditions, since they were comparatively taller than us. Blavatsky believed that the Atlanteans were the peak of human civilization. Then the Atlanteans arose as giants, attaining the pinnacle of power and physical attractiveness. In accordance with the laws of development, the Atlanteans had a 3rd eye that they created during the Luran Age for spiritual purposes. The 3rd eye gradually vanished as human structure developed due to corruption and materialism. Edward Casey explores the history of Atlantis as well. He offers information regarding the early stages of the civilization's development, even if the majority of his insights center on the last 20,000 years of its existence. Casey proposes that the 5 races of humans, yellow in the Gobi, white in the Carpathians, red in the Atlantic and American regions, brown in the Andes, and black in Africa, emerged at the same time on Earth. This phenomenon occurred over 10,500,000 years ago. These 5 species were the sons of God that the Bible spoke of, and the daughters of men that they erroneously mated with were only traces of the original alien forms from past attempts at material projection, creating a hybrid race. That was Casey's claim. When Atlantean society first emerged, a conflict arose over these hybrids. The children of the Law of One worked to preserve human purity while supporting hybrids in taking back their rightful place as creatures of God. Conversely, the sons of Belial regarded hybrids as slaves and only accepted physical pleasure. 3 separate cataclysms struck Atlantis in 50,000 BC, 28,000 BC, and 10,000 BC, according to Casey. The first disaster happened when cutting-edge technology was used destructively, and the second disaster resulted from disputes between the 2 factions. Later, the children of the Law of Unity moved to Yucatan, Peru, the Pyrenees, Nevada, Colorado, and Egypt. Egypt acquired a high degree of civilization during the final phase of Atlantis, roughly during its 3rd period, when the pyramids and the Sphinx were built. Let us now explore a different story in which the Galactic Federation and extraterrestrial entities are fighting for dominance over Earth. This description of Atlantean society comes from Mas Dayano, an indigo man recounting his former life in the Atlantean colony of Camp in modern-day Egypt. According to Mas, the Anunnaki, or Air, are a race of enormous extraterrestrial beings that founded Atlantis some 16,000 BC. Situated amidst the Azores, Canaries, and Cape Verde Islands, their objective was to locate a residence and provisions. In order to develop the ideal living form, the Air experimented with Earth people's DNA in the Middle East. The Atlanteans were humans descended from the Air, chosen for their genuineness to live on Earth and pass on their wisdom. The Air divided into 2 factions, one of which enslaved mankind, and the other of which gently led and instructed them. Some of the descendants were taken away by the Arcturians, the kind part of the Air, in order to protect and provide autonomous travel free from direct intervention from advanced extraterrestrial civilizations. The 12 great families of Atlantis sprang from these descendants, from whom 12 offspring were selected to preserve data from each constellation. Cayo, Cape Green Acres, the Canary Islands, and Unique Azores were the islands that were first inhabited. High was the name of the main city and the core of the empire, which Plato depicted as circular. Around 300,000 people lived on the islands at the height of the Atlantean Empire. Because they carried Arcturian DNA, the Atlanteans were blue bloods, preserving their ancestry to pass on knowledge from the star people to the rest of humanity. The Atlanteans had an outward focus toward the material world, but the Lorans, the civilization that existed before Atlantis, sought to elevate consciousness via introspection. They created tools for the worldwide transmission of energy and information, regenerated and healed their own bodies, and gained access to other realms. They also used sound and vibration to affect the planet. With their advanced technology and cosmic understanding of energy use, the Atlanteans possessed incredible advantages and skills. But as we all know, good things only flourish when they are in balance. When balance is upset, what happens? It's interesting to note how closely their stories of being Lurin knowledge inheritors line up with those of other sources that mention Atlantean growth. For millennia, the Atlanteans began their evolutionary journey from the spiritual realm. Maintaining balance between the internal and external, they achieved unprecedented technological accomplishment while upholding Mu's guiding principles. But at a certain point, a split developed. The Atlanteans were divided into factions that aimed to rule the entire globe. They started abusing the technology they had created, which brought about a calamity. Some recommend shifting the poles, while others advocate using energy weapons on oneself to bury the continent. According to esoteric beliefs, this is the beginning of the end, the point at which mankind loses most of its capacity for energy and plunges into darkness. All of us remember Atlantis as the source of all that is referred to as occult and esoteric knowledge. Atlantis prospered for a long time, precisely because they were adept at using the so-called life force. Atlantis was originally and ever since founded in line with the laws of Lura, which followed the order of the stars. Because Loria personified the feminine concept founded in freedom, harmony, and spiritual communion, other sister colonies view Loria as their motherland. In a utopian community modeled after Lorenz, the early Atlanteans honored the divine feminine while preserving harmony with the divine masculine. Edgar Cayce described the early Atlanteans as intelligent people who had a natural ability to influence those who had access to both the past and the future. How did they manage to pull this off? By supporting their kids' development of the right side of their brains and honoring their early insights and ambitions. During infancy, not only are our psychic senses more accessible since we're still firmly connected to the other side of life, but also due to the incompleteness of our discourse. Thus, in order to interact with the physical world, we rely on our emotions and perceptions. The Atlanteans relied heavily on intuition and skillfully taught their kids how to use psychic powers. Some developed extraordinary mental discipline as adults and committed their life to using what they had learned. Their constant interaction with nature was another aspect of the Atlantean way of life that contributed to the preservation of their psychic talents. The Atlanteans were the first to figure out how to transform life force into a force useful for technology, according to Austrian mystic Rudolf Steiner. They were able to do what in Atlantean science appeared to be miracles because to this. According to Steiner, this force is innate to all living things and is demonstrated during processes like germination and growth. While occultists in the 19th and 20th centuries referred to the life force as vril, an all-encompassing term for the universal principle of life energy, life force, or life magnetism. In ancient times, it was known as prana or mana. The Atlanteans possessed near-superhuman abilities due to their mastery over the life force, which allowed them to manipulate the real to influence both the spiritual and tangible worlds. They could defy gravity, change matter, manipulate time, and supply infinite energy for a variety of mechanical machines. Different from ours, their technology was superior. In contrast to the metal and concrete-dominated landscapes of today, the Atlanteans lived in rich green settings that did not harm the natural world. Edgar Cayce's readings go into more information about how the Atlanteans used sound, atomic splitting, and a great crystal to harness power. The crystal's energy enabled long-distance voice communication, the benefits of lasers, and travel by air, sea, and underwater. When will it be possible for us to travel through space at will, much like the Atlanteans did? And how can they draw life force out and direct it? The Atlanteans used their highly developed abilities to absorb energy from a variety of sources, including sound, sunshine, the mind, and the Earth's magnetic field. Edgar Cayce draws attention to the Tuaoi stone, which is a key gem in Atlantis. At first, the Atlanteans enhanced the amount of sunlight that reached each of its 6 sides in order to promote introspection, meditation, and spirit realm connection. Priests developed the Great Crystal over millennia as humanity became more materialistic. This crystal could absorb energy from an unlimited fountain when it was directed, enlarged, and controlled. The Atlanteans created enormous, multifaceted stones and accomplished flying and swimming. An expertly cut quartz crystal was placed atop structures by Atlantean scientists to serve as a solar-style transducer. The facets of the crystal concentrated sunlight in an open area, much like contemporary parabolic mirrors. Engineers were able to adjust the amount of light exposure by moving a dome over the quartz stone. The Atlanteans used a substance similar to asbestos that is non-conductive to coat the structure that holds the crystal. Cayce describes how the Grand Crystal provides electricity to a central power plant on Earth, allowing the Atlanteans to resist gravity. Strong beams from the Grand Crystal, according to Cayce, transferred energy to receptor crystals, scorching them. This energy might then power a thermal or electric engine in a car or other mechanical equipment. This demonstrates the Atlanteans' capacity for wireless energy transmission. Cayce goes on to speculate that the massive crystal may have taken in energy from stars or other space-based sources. Tales of the Bermuda Triangle are well known. In this mysterious area, numerous ships and low-flying planes have disappeared without cause. Pilots occasionally report engine power outages, counterclockwise turning compasses, and other navigational equipment malfunctioning or abruptly stopping when their radios are operational. Travelers find themselves and their ships or aircraft shrouded in thick mist. Is there a potent crystal from Atlantis causing these disruptions? What happens if there's a crystal under the water that collects solar energy and transfers it to another vehicle when it passes over? Up until now, we have explored a variety of myths and beliefs about the origins of Atlantis, its people, and some of its technologies. However, what caused it to fail? Was this highly developed civilization exterminated by a capricious natural disaster? Or did it cause its own demise? A popular idea concerning the demise of Atlantis revolves around a devastating natural calamity. From this angle, Atlantis was in danger of being struck by a large-scale seismic event, or a violent volcanic eruption. According to the volcano eruption scenario, the landmass became unstable due to a strong explosion from an underwater volcano, which set off a chain of events that eventually caused Atlantis to submerge beneath the ocean. In the event of a seismic event, the hypothesis proposes that Atlantis's stability might have been destroyed by a large earthquake, perhaps accompanied by tsunamis. It's possible that seismic activity cracked the ground, causing the island to gradually collapse. The seismic theory offers a tenable explanation for the fall of Atlantis and is consistent with historical evidence of seismic activity in the Mediterranean region. An equally convincing explanation suggests that Atlantis's demise was mostly caused by environmental changes. From this angle, it appears that the island's submersion was caused by changes in climate or rising sea levels. Environmental elements may have contributed to the slow deluge of Atlantis, with increasing waves over a lengthy period of time, finally devouring the once thriving society. This theory's proponents cite changes in the temperature and geology that took place during the pertinent time period. Low-lying places, including Atlantis, may have been drowned as a result of changes in sea levels brought on by glacier melting or other climatic forces. The idea of Atlantis gradually giving way to the invading waves is consistent with the gradual and steady character of this environmental upheaval. In pursuit of hints that could provide insight into the destiny of this fabled island, researchers are still investigating the ocean floor and examining geological records. What do you think, though, about the people and city of Atlantis that never was? Thank you for viewing, and please let us know in the comments box below.